again, I hope you guys had a chance to look ahead at the teaching on 19. But one thing that is rampant in our society, not just in marriages, but everywhere, is conflict resolution or conflict avoidance. So many people are such people pleasers. How many people pleasers do we have in the room? Yeah, there's got to be at least one in every couple, right? Is there any couples with both people pleasers? That's tough. Is anybody? All right, at least we got one in every group. So usually the people pleaser doesn't know how much they stuff until they're allowed to actually speak, like until they're allowed, not just allowed, but encouraged to speak up and talk. It took me years to realize that I'm okay, like that I'm not weird and I'm not different because I'm so different and try to please people. And I really hated conflict as much as people don't believe that now. I look at conflict now as a positive thing. You know, it's even the word conflict resolution is a bit of a fallacy because quite honestly, we're always in conflict. If things are completely calm, we're probably not growing, we're probably not moving forward. You think about, again, everybody here works out at some time or another, you know? If you were just workout avoidance, you would never get on a Peloton. You would never try to beat that next score, you know, you would just become a vegetable. So it's that same mindset in relationships. If you really want to grow relationships, it's not like you need to cause conflict, but you can't run from it. And you've got to look for the opportunity to speak up and communicate. And again, that's also why people don't communicate, is because they don't want to deal with, you know, having to either hurt somebody's feelings or just the emotional roller coasters of what can happen when you deal with that kind of thing. So anyway, there's these kind of tips here that I would highly recommend. You're going to talk about these tips when we break up into your small groups. So it's define the problem and stick to the issue. So often there's conflict, right? And the next thing we know, we're talking about 2 years ago, you did that, you know, and it's got nothing to do with today's conflict. Or, you know, I didn't like when you did that. Well, I didn't like when you did, you know, and it's got nothing to do with the conflict. So learning how to define the problem and stick to the problem. And one of the keys in all this is not to say anything like, you make me feel this way. Because, you know, Nathan didn't make Sammy feel that way. You know, what happens is when you do that, it makes me feel that way. Now, it might be because of my dad or my brother or my coach or whatever that I have that issue, but it's not you making me feel that way. It's just you did something that triggered me to feel that way. That's a whole different conversation because now I don't have to get defensive. So again, define the problem, stick to the issue. You know, it's hard to pursue purity when you're in the midst of stress, but you've got to know that the other one's not your enemy, even when you're stressed. You know, if you really know that the other one's not the enemy, then you're not going to fight dirty. But if you start thinking you're enemies, you're going to fight as dirty as you need to. So don't fight dirty. Back to communication. You got to plan time to discuss it. If things get heated, it's okay to call a timeout and walk away, but you can't ever just say, we'll talk about it later. Later means I'm going to stuff it and I'm going to start justifying why maybe I'm wrong or why did I make such a big deal. The people pleaser will just go away and never want to come back. But if we say, look, we're going to take an hour and we are going to come back and we're going to deal with this, make that kind of commitment. Continue to affirm your relationship. Again, the the love languages thing is a really good tool, because if you really know the other's love language, you'll know how to affirm the relationship even in the midst of conflict. Listen carefully. How many have actually used active listening? Come on, you guys, Growing Kids God's Way, and we talked about it. Do you know what active listening is, everybody? Nobody? Somebody tell me what active listening is. Chris?
Right?
Natalie thinks she knows.
I think I do.
Okay.
Isn't that when you like repeat it back to them? Yes.
As many times as it takes. So a spouse says something, the other spouse says, I heard you say this. And the other spouse will go, it's not exactly what I said. I said this. And then the spouse says, okay, I heard you say this. And you keep doing that until you both say the same thing. And because it's amazing how many times, I mean, I guarantee everyone here has had a fight where you said something and 2 years later, somebody says, you said that. I was like, there's no way I said that. No, I know you said that. Or even worse, 5 minutes later, you said that. I'm like, no, that's not what I said at all. But that's what you heard because that's what the filter was. So if you do that active listening, it's really weird and it feels goofy, but it works because you'll finally land on something and you realize you're not hearing each other right. So the most important probably is to forgive each other. So make sure you read these promises on what forgiveness is. In the marriage course, we do a whole session or two on forgiveness because it's such a rampant problem in most relationships. Is there's so much unforgiveness that people can't even see straight. So truly learning to forgive is critical. And then lastly, back to the communication, is you have to land on a solution. Kind of like Dave and Liz, we were just talking about the situation and the stress there and the pet peeves. Like those are things that you got to land on new solutions on and try it, and then talk about how it feels. Like that didn't feel right. Let's try something else and be creative. You guys got way more creative thinking than you allow yourself to have. And you should just apply that creative thinking to your marriage. And I guarantee you'll find different strategies to deal with this stuff. So that was pretty rapid fire. Any questions? You guys ready to break up into small groups and talk about these tips and talk about what you guys are willing to do? Okay. What's the theme for tonight? One thing I keep hearing throughout the whole night is
open communication.
Time and communication. Time and communication. Making time to communicate. So I want to do one more challenge. We've got about 5 minutes. We did this in the last class, and I think it helped. But I'd love for you guys to collaborate as couples and tell me exactly when you're going to do this. You know, when are you going to do your homework? When are you going to carve out time and actually talk and do some things differently? In the last class, everybody told me what night they were going to do their homework. So I don't know if it helped, but it helped me. So when are you guys going to collaborate again on talking about this specific subject? And even if you still have, and I say even if, you're always going to have those loose ends on love and respect that you need to continue to hone, but you got to make space to do it. And you got to be more intentional about carving out a night or, you know, like 2-hour block, whatever it takes to do it, just like a date night. So this week's homework is, again, to readdress conflict, really talk about how you guys deal with conflict. Be honest, be open. I mean, you kind of know each other, but you know, the ones that are the people pleasers and the stuffers really need to decide to speak up. What about you guys, Chris and Natalie? Who's the stuffer and who's the speaker?
I know.
What do you think, Victoria?
I'm gonna guess that Natalie stuffs.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
It's hard. It's hard to be the stuffer and learn how to speak. So the loud one, the one that's not the stuffer, has to encourage, really be calm, and encourage Victoria's masterful at making me talk. And I don't always want to do it, but man, I feel better after I do. Even though when I say what I want to say, sometimes I feel stupid, because I just really so not used to being able to speak my mind. But she's so patient with me that she forces me to do it, and it's so healthy for our relationship. So again, don't try to find your little place in your shell. Come out of your shell and talk more.
The only reason I guess Natalie is because you and I are the same Briggs-Meyer, Meyer-Briggs, Smith & Wesson, whatever it's called. You and I have the same
ESFJ.
INJ.
Whatever it is.
Me and you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
I know.
Myers-Briggs?
I don't know.
Oh.
IN.
Well, I'm sending you guys tonight or tomorrow after I do the video.
ISNJ.
I'm going to send you guys all those 3 profiles. You'll have your personality profile, your love languages, and your spiritual giftings. If you don't know them, I would do it again. And that's a great way to open up conversation and really get to know each other again. So that's extra credit. Whoever does that gets extra credit, Dave and Liz. So
No pressure.
What about the Burgess-Muellers?
the Burgess-Muellers, the Muellers-Burgess.
What are they?
Well, it's a Spanish thing. It's usually the woman's name and then the male's name.
Okay.
I'm still getting used to it.
Where's Aaron Rodriguez McCleary?
Yeah.
Yeah, he dropped Rodriguez, so.
Okay.
Very good.
So, guys, you got a lot of stuff to work on your date nights. So, dig in, open up, be real, deal with conflict differently. And guess what? Next week, we actually get to start talking about parenting. But we start with the subject from last week. We start with respect again in your home, and how you show respect for one another, how you show respect for your children, and actually how you show respect for your parents and authorities. And we'll talk more about that next week. So